The cafe was alive that morning. Steam rose from coffee machines. Soft jazz played in the background. Patrons chatted, tapped on laptops, and sipped lattes. And then he appeared. An old man, 89 years old, cane in hand, back slightly hunched. His coat was patched and frayed, shoes worn through at the soles. He shuffled to the counter. "Just a sandwich, the cheapest one you have," he said, voice trembling slightly. The cafe owner looked him up and down, lips curling into a sneer. "The cheapest, really?" He leaned over, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Why even come in here if you can't afford anything decent?" The old man nodded politely. He dug through his pocket, counting a few worn coins. Not enough for a tip, barely enough for the sandwich. The cafe owner chuckled. "You know, you could at least try something better if you had money, but I guess you don't." The old man didn't respond. He paid the coins and slowly, painfully walked to a small corner table. He lowered himself into the chair, cane resting beside him. A quiet, fragile, invisible entity. The customers watched. Some shook their heads, some whispered, some felt pity, and everyone assumed he was just a poor old man. He sat quietly at the corner table. He unfolded a thin, worn napkin. He took small bites of his sandwich, savoring each one. The cafe owner leaned on the counter, smirking. "Eating the cheapest sandwich, what a joke," he whispered to the barista. "Does he even know what a real meal is?" The old man didn't react. He finished his bite, wiped his hands, and looked around quietly. His calmness unnerved some of the customers. A little girl stared at him, curious. A young woman whispered, "Why is he so quiet?" The cafe owner walked over, leaning slightly toward him. "You know, at your age, shouldn't you enjoy something better? A warm soup, a proper sandwich?" He laughed, making sure the old man heard. The old man's hands shook slightly. He didn't raise his eyes. He didn't answer. He just kept eating. A few customers began to feel uneasy. The old man's patience, his humility, even his silence, it was uncomfortable. Then the cafe owner noticed something. A ring, gold, engraved, heavy, subtle, but unmistakable. The old man noticed nothing. He was focused on his sandwich, lost in quiet thought. The cafe owner's smirk faltered. His arrogance wavered. Something about that ring looked familiar, and yet he tried to hide it. The old man finished the sandwich. He gently folded the napkin. He stood slowly, cane in hand. "Excuse me," he said softly, voice calm, almost fragile. The cafe owner straightened, and for the first time felt a flicker of doubt. Everyone still thought he was just a poor old man. No one suspected the truth. No one could imagine how wrong they were. The old man stood at the counter, cane in hand, eyes steady, voice calm. "Excuse me," he said, almost whispering, but the cafe owner froze. Something about the calmness, the quiet confidence, made the young man uneasy. The cafe owner straightened, trying to hide his nervousness. "Yes? What can I do for you?" The old man reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out a small velvet box. He opened it carefully. The cafe owner leaned in, curious. Inside, a gold card, engraved, elegant, exclusive. Not a credit card, not a membership card, a CEO's personal access card, a card that opened doors, many doors. The old man's eyes met the cafe owner's. "Do you recognize this?" The cafe owner's jaw went slack. How?"
The old man smiled faintly. "I own this cafe and every cafe in this city." He tapped the ring on his finger. "The one you noticed, my family's crest. This ring has been in my family for generations." The cafe owner stepped back, suddenly aware of his arrogance. You're the owner?" The old man nodded. "Yes, and I've been watching you, humiliating people, laughing at those less fortunate, thinking it's clever." The other customers gasped. Some whispered, some stared wide-eyed. The man they thought was a poor, humble old man was the boss. The old man leaned slightly forward. He said, "Remember this. True character shows not when you're among equals, but when you hold power over someone weaker." The cafe owner's face drained of color. He realized he had just humiliated the one person who had the authority to change everything. The old man smiled faintly, and then he walked away, leaving the cafe owner frozen. The whispers, the stares, the shame followed him out. That day, the cafe owner learned a lesson he would never forget.
The cafe owner stood frozen behind the counter. His hands shook. The customers stared. Some whispered. Some gasped. The air felt heavy. "Do you know what arrogance looks like?" the old man asked, voice calm, measured. "It's thinking you can humiliate someone because you assume they're weaker than you." The old man tapped the gold ring on his finger. But power, true power, isn't shown by how much you take from others. The cafe owner's lips trembled. He realized that all his insults, all his laughter at the poor old man, were being weighed and judged. The old man reached into his coat again. He pulled out a tablet. On it, a single screen appeared, the cafe's entire review and management system. With a few taps, the owner's past actions appeared, complaints, customer reviews, notes from employees. Every instance of arrogance, cruelty, and humiliation recorded. "Your behavior," the old man said, calm but firm, "has consequences. Starting today." The cafe's automatic system displayed owner suspended, mandatory training, respect, and customer care. All tips refunded to customers he humiliated. The cafe owner's face turned pale. His knees felt weak. Tearfully, he whispered, I didn't know." "You should have known," the old man said. "Humility, respect, these are not optional. They are how we live, how we survive, how we treat each other." Customers watched in stunned silence. Some nodded quietly, realizing they had judged too. Some whispered apologies to the old man, still sitting quietly. The old man smiled faintly. He had taken the high road. He had let karma do the rest. And justice had been served. The cafe owner slumped against the counter. He would never look at anyone the same way again. The old man returned to his corner table, finished his coffee, gathered his cane, and left, quietly, like he had always been invisible. But the lessons he left behind echoed far louder than any words could. Outside the cafe, the world carried on. Cars passed slowly. Children laughed in the distance. The morning sun cast a golden glow over the street. The old man walked steadily, cane tapping on the pavement. He passed a young couple arguing over spilled coffee. He paused, smiled faintly, and continued, unhurried, unbothered. Inside the cafe, the owner slumped behind the counter. He stared at the empty chair in the corner. He realized He had been judged not by the people he thought mattered, but by someone he had assumed was powerless. One by one, the customers returned to their routines. Some glanced at the counter, whispering quietly about what had happened, and a few silently reflected on their own behavior, wondering how often they had judged too quickly. The barista cleaned the tables, moving carefully around the empty chair the old man had left. She whispered to a friend, "Did you see that ring? That man, he wasn't poor at all. Not really. He was something else." Meanwhile, the old man reached a small park bench nearby. He sat down. The sun warmed his face. A soft breeze rustled the trees. For a moment, he allowed himself a small smile. He thought of his life, the years of quiet patience, the times he had been underestimated, the moments when people judged him without seeing him. And yet, he had survived, thrived, and taught a lesson without raising his voice. A little girl walked past, dropped a crumpled leaf at his feet, and smiled. He picked it up, nodded gently. Sometimes, he thought, the smallest gestures are the ones people remember the most. That day, the cafe owner learned humility. The customers learned empathy. And the old man, he walked on, quiet as always, leaving behind a story they would never forget. Sometimes the richest lessons come from the poorest appearances. And sometimes justice doesn't roar. It waits quietly until the right moment. The camera pans up to the skyline. Soft sunlight glints off buildings. A gentle wind blows. And life moves forward.